You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions Special Episode 30. And now, here are Craig and Jeff.
Welcome to the 30th supplemental log episode of the Tricorder Transmissions. We're very happy to announce that Mr. Craig Cohen has returned to the show after a couple of weeks of his cross-country move out to Las Vegas. So, Craig Cohen, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and thanks for holding things down while I was trekking across the country and getting set up.
Trekking. I see what you did there. Very good. I hope everything's going well for you out there in Vegas, and we'll have you back on regularly again.
Yes. Excellent. Yes.
Excellent. So right off the bat, let me just say that the first appearance of tonight's guest on the show here is very long overdue. So this is something we should have put together ages ago, and it finally quite literally coalesced at the very, very tail end of the Las Vegas convention in this past couple weeks ago. And so it's a very distinct pleasure to finally be able to introduce someone who I really don't think needs much of an introduction, but author, editor, producer, Star Trek archivist, the list goes on and on and on, Mr. Larry Nemecek.
Hey guys, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I mean, you were almost like a little paranoid when we were talking there at the Masquerade bar, like, why won't you come on our show or something? And I was like, oh, it was totally just accidental all around, but it's great to be here today. Thanks.
It's funny when I say it was quite literally the end of the convention. It really was. It was about 4:00 in the morning on Monday after the con had ended. I think the Masquerade bar was just starting to break up, and through the crowd comes Larry. And we just started having a conversation.
4 a.m.? Okay. That was that's when STLV turns into like your favorite class reunion.
Oh, God, it does.
And nobody wants to leave because we'll never see each other again or something ridiculous.
I certainly didn't want to leave. My voice had gotten so hoarse by that point that it was even difficult to speak, but there were so many great people there. And I think we had gotten to talking about, because we talked a couple of days prior for a few minutes on the convention floor in the vendor room. You were at your table, and I think Craig and I had walked by. And you had remembered us at that point, and we had talked briefly about maybe coming on. And I think once we hooked back up at the end of the con, that's when things started to coalesce. But you had so many other interviews that you've been on recently. How many have you done since you've been back?
Well, I think I've like guest talked on a couple and one, and maybe a couple more to come. But I've had my head down so low the last few months with 2 or 3 things going on, and then and then con season itself, just getting back and forth to things, and one more coming up here in about another month, actually, to kind of close out the summer for me. This big Salt Lake Comic-Con in Salt Lake, which is apparently the number 3 in size Comic-Con or fan convention of any kind in the States, which is kind of amazing. But yeah, I'd had my head down and working on that and working on my new gig, my new brainchild that it's been years in the making. And so no offense intended. It's it was kind of it's like this battle. The last 2 or 3 years, Vegas has turned into a battle of, first of all, people go to have fun, and there's fans, and we have an emerging class of Uber fans. We used to call them BNFs, big name fans, but we have and there's licensees and vendors, and then there's all the show, cast and crew and writer producers, and then there's this emerging class of fans who blog and do podcasts, and they're very the fan film people, and they're emerging too, and they're like celebrities in their own right, and it's kind of a sign of how it's partly from the tech and partly from social media. The last few years, it's so different than it was just maybe 5-6 years ago, when it was just like the sheep, and you went to this room and people got in this line. But talking about how the cons have evolved. But anyway, there's so many of those people, and you're trying to cram and see so many different people. I mean, this was like my year. I didn't see any of my actor buds unless they wandered by Masquerade, or I just happened to be where I could like run to the green room and say hello to somebody and then run out. I did that with Robert Beltran because I know his wife and his little girl really well. And I was standing there when Mike Westmore had just did the big show of putting on his Chakotay tattoo like they did Dax's spots last year with Terry Farrell. and somebody handed him. They were in the green room before he was supposed to go over and do his photo ops, his special photo ops with the Chakotay tattoo on. And somebody had just stuck, wipes in his hand, like a little bag of alcohol, lidded wipes, and he just automatically started to wipe his Chakotay tattoo off. Yeah. And I was going to stand there, and my brain went kind of, and I just had run in to say hi to Ariana and to Marlena, and the Westmores were all standing there, and said hi to them, and I was going to back out. And I just looked over and I said, not my job, but aren't you supposed to do photo ops in that tattoo? And he just did that deer in the headlights blink look. And fortunately, they hustled him over, and what took 30 minutes talking took about 6 minutes to do. Again, put it back on for the photo ops, but it was kind of funny. But those kind of moments were few and far between. I was really more table tethered this year than I normally am. So if people walked by, and a lot of good cosplay walked by, and a lot of friends and that, and then the evenings we had events that we were doing some stuff on my own too. But I really, next year, my big goal, and I say it every year, is to have everything under control. I'm going to try to have an assistant next year and split my time up where I get to see more people more calmly, more rationally.
So I saw that you were part of the Leonard Nimoy Memorial panel, weren't you?
Yeah, I kind of got in a little late, and I wound up just doing a couple of things on the formal program this year. And one thing, we did it way too early in the day. It should have been an evening event that we did this blooper caption contest thing that's kind of a takeoff of my column in the magazine called Captions Logged, which is British humor, but don't ask me. But anyway, and it was at 10 in the morning, and it should be 8 at night like we did it in Germany at VedCon. It was a much bigger hit. But the other thing I did this year was join, it was supposed to have been Richard Arnold, who fell and broke his couple of bones and couldn't make the con at all, which was sad. So, get well soon, Richard. Heal up fast. So John Tenuto, who's another one of our Trek scholars from the Chicago area, had a Nimoy slideshow on his laptop. I do one too. I have one too, but it focuses kind of more on his photography and some of his other credits. And John had one that had a lot of his early life photos, some of the same things that Leonard himself did 4 or 5 years ago when he did his last appearances. So and then Adam Malin from Creation, who was doing a lot of stage hosting. So the three of us kind of used John's slides and did a commentary and reflected. It was part of a big thing that they showed some clips of Leonard talking at some of the Creation shows, and then his son Adam Nimoy came out, who's doing the documentary about his dad, came out and spent some time talking and answering questions and promoting the doc to be. So it was a real honor. And at first I thought I was just going to be like, well, it's Adam's the host and it's John's slides and I'll be like a third wheel. But as we got into it, we kind of found a rhythm. And I don't know, 30, 40 minutes or something. We went a little over by Adam's decree. And I really enjoyed it. And I really had a lot of comments from people afterwards that they really enjoyed it. And of course that was combined with the tape highlights, and then Adam's talk came later. His son's talk came later, but that was it was really gratifying. That really grew into something I wasn't quite expecting it to be as touching. We had some fun too. When it wasn't like a tearjerker or anything. But I mean, did you guys see it?
Yes, it was lovely. It was a beautiful tribute. It was actually very touching to us. We had a tough time doing our Leonard Nimoy tribute episode when he passed earlier in the year. So it was kind of an emotional experience to see those, especially his early life, the childhood life and growing up and, prior to Star Trek. That was really, really cool to see.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, he was 84, 85, whatever. I mean, he was a Depression and World War II generation kid. And so all the effects, plus he was an immigrant and Jewish. So he had all these elements that we all would have in our lives. He was in a very pivotal time in history, and when a lot of the things that made up his DNA, his ethnicity, his geography, his timing, a lot of things were in schism and in crisis, and depression and war and prejudice, and then out of all that, trying to be an actor and a performer, and it was really a nice way to kind of waltz through some of those and you have those years and those impacts on people and on him, and remember, oh, well, this makes total sense. Oh, well, this makes complete sense, and some of the qualities that he brought to his acting, and a lot of just crappy roles that you take when you're an actor, but then when you get a few good things. And touching things with humanity, much less when you get involved with a guy named Gene Roddenberry who's trying to start a show called Star Trek, and all that you can bring to it. Then, so just sitting there watching that. I mean, we were watching it cold. I mean, I knew vaguely the events depicted, and one or two of those images I'd never seen before at all. But I think I dropped my poker face and said that on stage, like, "Oh, I never seen this before." But no, it was great. So kudos on John. And I told Adam Malin, I said, "Oh, you could have yelled at me. I have a lot of Leonard's photography from his later years, as well as some show highlights too." So, and I had volunteered that too, but we had more than enough material there to cover. And no, I was just really touched by how many fans came by all through the weekend and said really, really enjoyed that. Like I took I was just there and went along for the ride, but was glad to help out and add something to it in a few cases. I'm glad you guys. I hope you guys sound like you're representative of the way people took it, because it turned out to be, I guess, that and the Voyager 20th panel turned out to be, I guess, the two stage highlights of the weekend, maybe the main stage.
I heard a lot of great feedback about the Voyager panel.
Yeah, so that was very gratifying. So
from what I understand, you got released a brand new CD from your Trekland On Speaker series at this convention, correct?
Yeah, that's the last 4 years. Because here's the deal, and if I haven't mentioned it with you guys, I mean, I have it. It's really interesting how the years have sneaked up on me, and one of the things, especially when we moved after being in one place 15 years, 2 years ago. And last kid got married, and so we downsized and empty nested and all this stuff. And it just really hit me. And one thing that hits me anyway over the years is how I used to think things were going to get old and moldy and no one would care about a lot of things that I had in my wheelhouse. Before I realized how we have new fans in Trek anyway, we have new fans all the time, and people haven't heard. I just saw a thing where a story Mike Okuda wrote in 2009 about the essence of number one being maybe reused in the original series, season one. How that was, and I was like, this is 6 years old, guys. And then but it's like I slap myself and go, but if you weren't around 6 years ago, you don't know this. It's like, and it's the same way with a lot of my stuff. It's kind of like, there's always people out there who. We have so many new fans coming in all the time, and a spectrum of people and what their different interests are. And maybe maybe when they were a kid, they were this way, but now that they're older, they see things in new eyes. And like hearing the girls, the women talking about, the young women talking about the Janeway, the women of Voyager panel. I was listening to their podcast, Kayla and Mary and Amy and forgotten the last. Oh, and Jana's panel. But it's like 10 or 15 years go by, especially if you were a kid at first, and then now you're a young adult, and then when you're a middle-aged adult, and as through your spectrum of life, you see things differently. And it says something about Star Trek, how it's something, dare I say, like Shakespeare or some other classic that different times in your life you can go back and find something new or something that relates to you differently, like hopefully any good art does. So anyway. But realizing that it was not going to get old, that there was always a good use for things. So I'm sitting here with my 20 boxes of, not 20 boxes, my 20 years worth of cassette tapes from all the interviewing for the companion book, and then after that I kept doing. And it hit me. It's like, I got to get this stuff digitized and off of here. So that's what the On Speaker, I did get back to it. That's what the On Speaker CDs are. Is at least some baby steps toward getting those tapes digitized, because it's talking to everybody from about 1992 onward, with some random ones even before that. My first interview I ever did was just something for the newspaper I work for in 1986 with Mark Leonard. And that was the first time it dawned on me I could be doing this and like writing off the trip costs on taxes and and everything, way before any books and anything happened, and we were still very much back in Oklahoma. But but then once I had the access for the book, and Janet was working on Voyager, it was like, well, everybody knows me and I've done the hard part, and I've got the trust and the familiarity. So, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed bringing my journalism background to my my education, theater training, to just being a fan, and bringing all three of those together, not just one or two of them. Because I would read interviews with a million actors, which are fun and witty, but it's like, there are other people that really make the decisions on the shows. And then watching people be interviewed, and it's like, but you should have asked this, 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 and this. Or watching a show and going, gee, I wonder what that was about, or I wonder what, And so finally being in a catbird seat where you had the keys to be able to do that was just something that I really enjoyed and always tried to bring to my work. And then it's like, why should I stop this? If they'll keep having me, I'll stay. So I had those boxes of tapes, and then it was like they need to be saved. And the On Speaker CD was my first attempt at finding a way to get those and share them with people. And now we're into themes. And this was the 4th year. So it was the 20th anniversary of Voyager's pilot was what I themed it to. So Jerry Taylor and the late, great Rick Colby, the director, and Dan Curry, and Richard James, production designer. But, of course, it's all them talking from 1994, 1995 in, remastered. So that's on my site, LarryNemecek.com, if anybody's interested in that. But it's a nice deep dive. It's not glib little interviews. It's like I'd sit down for an hour or two with people in their offices when the time was right at the end of the year usually. And so they're leisurely and hopefully a deeper dive. And even, some people have passed away. You're not going to see Rick Colby on a stage barely. Jerry Taylor's retired and lives up Northern California. So that's the beauty of those. And a lot of my stuff, I realized a long time ago, I'm not typical fan in a lot of ways. So it may not be for everybody, but if it is, please and thank you and have at it.
Yeah. The other thing I found, Larry, is that there's a lot of value in archival interviews in the sense that you're talking to people at the time they were going through something, as opposed to the time after, where they've created their memories of that time. So there really is tremendous value there.
Yeah. Well, it's the biggest thing to me is, because the first year I came out to work on the Companion, I learned so much. And one of them was being even a licensed official author meant piddly squat, because a studio, there's no such thing as a monolithic Paramount. Just like today, there's no such thing as a monolithic CBS. There's different arms. There's licensing, there's publicity, there's promotion, there's the actual production end of the thing. And then since then, you can throw in interactive and mobile and whatever. And just because the licensing end of things promises you interviews for your book, which is going to be official and which has deadlines and is, the clock is ticking on this, that, it's like none of them check with promotion or production, especially in those days. So I just made my trip when I thought it would make sense. And like in February, and they still had 3 more months to go in the season. Last thing anybody wanted to do was sit down and talk to me, some idiot, when they're all like crunching out their 14, 16-hour days. So I learned real fast, time it for that April-ish, March-ish, April, and then of course the writers were done sooner than the stage, which was done sooner than post-production. So everybody had their end time at a different time. So once we moved out here, it was easier to gauge that. But it was better than had people rolled out a red carpet for me, because I basically had to go meet everybody on my own and get their trust, rather than having them go, and here's our official author from where? Oh, Oklahoma. Okay, well, anyway, so it was, in the long run, just like a lot of things happen, for a reason or for the better. And in the long run, that actually gave me a better grounding and a better base. And I knew more people involved, and I didn't worry about actors so much, because everybody talks to actors and interviews them. I want to know the people that really make the show and really make the decision. So yeah, that was the thing I learned, though, doing that way. And it just served me well for years and years and years to come. In fact, it gets to the point where when the like the DVDs and the Blu-ray documentaries happen, people like Ron B. Moore and Visual Effects Ron and Dan and some of the crew people and the designers, they were like, "Oh, thank God you did your book," because I'd forgotten a lot of this stuff. It's like I went back and reread just to get my memory fresh again. So yeah, archiving helps. But the thing I was going to say was there was a sweet spot where even catching people in summer, because nobody wants to talk in the summer. They all want to go off, have their vacations with their families or their bachelor buddies or whatever, and come back in the fall, although it's usually like June, July, and they take off April, May. And it's just that week or two when they're mostly done and they're having to hang in their office. And that was the time to get everybody, because then they flush their memory cell over the summer, and their attention totally is ramped back up into, the whole year, this 26 episodes staring them in the face to start off with. So,
Right.
Just finding that sweet time to do it was the great. There's times when I would talk to people on deadlines for something in particular, like for magazine driven stuff. But the best stuff was where and even after the book came out, and every once in a while somebody'd say, "Now, what's this for?" And I'd say, "Well, I'm just using it with fact files, and and plus," I said, "if you tell me this now, we won't have to. We won't have to talk about it 20 years from now." And they'd all laugh. And I go, because people will be wanting to know this stuff 20 years from now and 30. And I mean, look at the original series, and they'd all kind of go, then they'd all kind of get that scared deer in the headlights look like, oh my God, that's right. And of course it's true.
Something that caught my eye, and I hope this isn't too far out of bounds for a Star Trek conversation, but I was reading about these on speaker CDs, that the tapes that you're rescuing these recordings from were a relatively unpreserved. The audio producer, recorder, editor in me is curious about the process of remastering and restoring those recordings. Do you have any insight into how you actually go about doing that?
Yeah, well, first off, let me say that I was always smart enough to have them like in my office.
Oh, good.
So they've always been in an air conditioned. No, they were never like out in a garage,
okay,
unlike my first contact chocolate bars. Or whatever, or my Star Trek coffee from the 90s. Yeah, the rats enjoyed it in the garage. No, I've always had them indoors. Where they've needed help with, and thankfully when it started to get to 20 years, I went, yeek, I've got to get something with it. There's my grandma talking, yeek. I get going with it. What more is the case is every once in a while, well, what more the case is when we actually recorded them the first time, like all the Hart Building and Cooper Building offices were nothing luxurious, and they all had like window unit air conditioners. And if it was a hot day in April or May or June, before I realized it, to do this, people would have their air conditioners going, and it would be a window unit air conditioner in their little, for most of the people, an 8x12 office or something, going in the background kind of a thing. And I was like, okay, we turn that down. Or the other goofy thing was, if I was having a heavy day and I hadn't checked, I would always carry batteries. It was just my Targus bag and my, 1.5-inch thick Mac, early first couple of generations PowerBook, and in my little Sony cassette recorder, little palm-sized, looked like a Walkman, only it was a black Sony. And there'd be some of them where if the batteries start to die, the speed, I don't know if you've ever heard this.
Oh yeah.
But like the buzzing starts in, and then they turn faster and faster. So a couple of these, we actually like slowed the thing down and got rid of we'd take different stages of the buzz and the speed down. Not in a lot, like one or two so far that it needed. Most of the time it was like the air conditioning, whatever in the back. A couple of times, especially if it was directors and things, it would be like out at lunch. It would actually be a lunch. Most of the time it would be in people's offices. And sometimes it would be a phone call. Although I just have to say I really lucked out between my visits on the lot and then all the years after when the 5 years Janet worked on Voyager in the script office, and then even after that, I tried to do so much live in the offices with people. So it's not even like a phone quality, but typically the stuff on magazine deadline would get done on phones. But that's the kind of thing. So I just love it when I pull one out and start to do it again, and it's like, oh, good, this is going to be, this is pretty pristine, yay.
So how much time does it take for you to actually produce one of these CDs?
Well, I have to say that, the first year, there's been so many things the last 4 or 5 years, I'm like, I've just got to do this, damn it. Like the years are whizzing by, and the media landscape is reinventing itself, and we don't have big, with fan films and everybody entrepreneuring their own stuff. I just need to do this, and these are going to sit here and disintegrate if I don't A, get them digitized, and B, hope, and I say this without trying to be too mercenary and used car salesman-y, get some value out of them for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I've been wonderful for having them. The original use was, pulling, transcribing, using them in interviews and features and that kind of thing. But at that rate, it was going to be 50 years before I even got around to using them all for that kind of thing. So, and as the years went by, I realized that, especially with people who have passed away, like Michael Piller and Bob Justman and Rick Colby and others, it's just cool to hear them, even if it's not video. I mean, that would have been the ultimate, but you didn't carry cameras around on the lot in the
Right.
90s, even when you were doing, so just having the audio has been killer because it's so relaxed usually, and people are pretty frank and honest. So actually producing them the first year, I was going to do it all myself, and I kind of like screamed online on Twitter or something, and I had a couple of people say, "Hey, I'll help you," who are audio. And a friend of a friend helped me with one, and Chris Jones, who does the Trek FM podcasts, who I'd been on their shows a few times, jumped in and said, "Hey, I'll help you." And basically, in a killer year, the first year we did the tour, that's what's insane. The first year we did our LA to Vegas tour for Trek Film Sites with Geek Nation Tours was also the first year I did an on speaker CD. And I thought I had it all under control, and I didn't. And Chris jumped in and helped me, and he's basically did the art design for the CD and helped me remaster. I digitize it, the whole thing, and then I go back through with the transcript and figure out what chunk, like 15, 18-minute chunk I want to do. And then he does it, hopefully without too much to do to it, a couple of passes. And then I'll record an intro, and then he'll stick a couple of sound effects into it and blend it in and equalize it out. So hopefully not a ton of work. Maybe a few hours per 2 to 6 hours per track. So we're not talking, CBS remaster DS9 time frame here. This is something that actually get doable and not put anybody back too far. But we do make an attempt to, make them as pristine as possible, which is part of the idea. But even at that, it dawned on me that it's hard enough coming up with a theme, and I have no idea what I'm doing next year because I don't have really any original series material here. I've had 2 or 3 people give me interviews from like the 70s and the 80s of original series actors and people, but I don't have any of that per se. So I'm still after these last 3, the jury is out on what number 5 is going to be for a theme next year. See, I've done them with finales and pilots and anniversaries, but I could do props or visual effects or art people or writers, or do it series by series or whatever, or do a close-up on somebody for different times in their career. I don't know. I've got it like wide open like that. So,
and you release these every year at the Vegas convention, right?
Yeah, that's my deadline to kick myself in the butt and make me get one done. And right now, number 1, I've let it go out of print. I keep meaning to have it be on iTunes. And for those of your guys out there listening in that goes, why is he doing them on CD? It's something I can have at cons and actually have it be physical for people. And I have there's a place I can autograph. And there's a tri-panel in there that's got like a lot of notes and a lot of background and context and everything. So it's not just the recording, because I want to give people value, and all the photography is my photography of people. So nothing comes out of the studio, out of like the studio archives. So I'm all clear with licensing. It's all good. My friend's there.
You're talking to 2 physical media junkies right now, by the way, Larry.
Oh, good.
Craig
Okay.
and I have tons and tons of physical media. I still buy CDs all the time.
Well, but I do get it that people say that. So just so people know that, it's something I can have physical at and have kind of an event around it. So the Vegas opening is kind of an event, and I do have 2, 3, and 4 available. If you go to my website, there's you can get 1 or 2 or all 3 or whatever. And number 1, when number 2 and number 3 sell out, I'll do the same thing, put them up line, and no, I haven't done it yet. For downloading. That's one of those goals that keeps getting kicked back, but I'm working on it. So yeah, the first one was just people who have passed away. So the first, it was called Future Voices Past, PASSED, and it was Michael and Bob Justman and Mark Leonard, who's the only actor I've had on so far, but it'd been so long, I thought people would enjoy that. And Jerry Fleck, who is part of what I really want to get into eventually and part of what my new project is about. Jerry Fleck is, you may know his name from credits, but he was a first assistant director. Not big, famous, flashy guy, but one of the stalwarts of the crew who came in the end of Next Gen and lasted up until like 3 years into Enterprise. He had done both of Jonathan's movies as first AD, so he had 2 movies under his belt. And he was with late Next Gen, all of Voyager, the 2 movies, and Enterprise up until he died in his sleep of one of those, heart valve problems that nobody knows is there until it happens. Very tragic.
That's an amazing run, though.
Yeah. But he had, and I really interviewed him for First Contact. And so the first on speaker has some great shooting on location stories from the missile from the silo, the Titan silo they used, and a couple other stories. But he, people like that have so many stories, both about content and just both about the people they work with that are just out there. And every year that goes by, the memories get more faded. So what I was trying to say a while ago about timing is catching people in that sweet spot at the end of the season, even versus 6 months later or a year later, is so different because everything is so fresh. And so everything I ever tried to do, and of course we do things now, we go back and talk to people later on, but everything I tried to do and what I think is the value of this collection and why I'm trying to make sure they're all saved well it's fresh in the day, people talking. So anyway, so that's why I'm very proud. But I realized that, the first time I went to a convention, I thought, I'm talking about like when I was in college and they were still kind of new, but my impression was we'd all go bring our background stuff and sit around and talk background. That's what I thought a convention was. I didn't know. I guess I got it. There'd be like authors and actors, and they'd sign autographs and talk. But I wasn't prepared for how much people just kind of like skimmed along. So I went, okay. So I'll never take like my tech manual and my medical reference and my photo novels and my all that stuff with me in a box again. I don't need that. So not everybody their heartstrings are in fandom the way mine. Everybody's got their own interests and their own things that float their boat more than others.
I heard in there was a little bit of a hint of your new project that you're working on, and I think you're referring to Portal 47.
We can say the name. Yes,
we can say it. Okay, good. I'll have to edit that out.
It whose name can be uttered.
Okay.
No, the last month I have been sneak peeking it at first San Diego Comic-Con and then Vegas. And I'm just doing that just because there's so many moving parts to put together, because literally the last few years, I kind of said this, I've been trying to figure out the way to get basically my memories and my archives and my Rolodex of people out for fans to enjoy faster than, being a podcast guest or even writing a book or doing my CDs. And it's just like stuff needs to happen faster. And these are all, it feels like slow motion. So yeah, Portal 47 is, I say it's the 21st century backstage pass to what's everyone loves about the 24th century in Trek, but more like a mini con that you can access from your own center seat all year long.
Oh, wow.
So awesome. It's going to be, how's that? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I let that resonate for a minute?
Sounds excellent to me.
I've had all these pieces and I'm not knowing, and part of it's the tech that we have now and some of the same things that, everybody does their fan film on a laptop and, so many people podcast and interview and all that. And it's I'm just trying to putting together different pieces. And the thing is, I do have a Facebook page up, Portal 47. What I'm doing, I don't have a web page up. It's coming soon, but it's and I also say it's not for, like I was saying a minute ago, it's not for everybody. It's a subscription. Eventually, I want to have even a higher level tier. But for right now, I'm just trying to. If I have 25, 50, 100 people, I will be happy. I'm not trying to do thousands and thousands of portalers or 47ers. And of course, you guys know the story of 47, right? The saga of 47.
Well, I'm not sure if our audience may know about it, so maybe it's worth going over.
Well, but 47 is the most common random number in the universe, right?
True.
According to a math professor one summer at Pomona College, and then according to everybody at Pomona College, it became a thing. and the veterans and alumni of Pomona College include one Joe Manoski, who brought it to Next Gen and made 47 a thing with all the Star Treks after that, even or seeing Kurtzman and in the art departments on the JJ movies getting 47 into thing. It's just the 47s crop up in Star Trek scripts and art graphics, and now it's a thing, and people 47 watch, and it's just a thing. And then people look for 47 because the joke was, like I said, it's the most common random number in the universe, which by definition makes no sense. That's meaningless, but that's part of the joke. So, and somebody one time said, famously, Douglas Adams and 42 was the the answer to life, universe, and everything. And
yes, my favorite author.
And so yeah. And somebody had Rick Berman say, well, but 47 is 42 adjusted for inflation.
Yeah, that's great.
So anyway, so Portal 47 is, and it's so new. I'm launching it in September, which you guys are putting this up, I guess, about that time, but at the beginning of the month. I'm still putting the pieces together. I've had some people come aboard already. I had a bonus sign up, and I'll extend that for you guys. If people get to me by September 15th, I'll extend the bonus signups that I started at the cons this summer, which were a CD of choice between number 2 and number 3 of Trekland On Speakers, and an actual call sheet, a random call sheet from Voyager, DS9, or Enterprise.
Oh, spectacular!
And that's and I try not to get into physical things, but that was a physical, in-person bonus, and I'll extend that. So, and here's the thing: for right now, just email me, Larry at Larry Nemecek. I'll send you the information because there's about 10 or 12 features, and then there's 2 different plans to jump aboard, and it's pretty affordable for the cost of 2 movie tickets a month. But I want everybody to see everything, because I'm really, part of the reason it took so long to put this together was because I wasn't aware of all the tech, and I wasn't aware of what I could do. And so I'm putting a lot of moving pieces together. But it's come to the point where if you have a phone interface, if you can Skype or whatever, or call, either way, and even our British and German and Aussie fans that we have so many of that that know me and have things that the internet has opened up, we can continue that here, because it won't be it'll be the same for everybody, global. So we can do it. Thank you for technology being where it is now, 2015. So yeah, it's I just say it's kind of like having a mini con all year long, and especially for the people that are like isolated and can't get to cons or hear people talk. So so guests will be a big part of it, but people with guests and stories you've never heard before is a big chunk of it, but not the end all be all either. So anybody that's interested out there, and I hopefully a lot of guys that listen to your shows will be in that category. Just email me. My regular email, my Trek email is Larry at LarryNemecek.com, and say, I heard about Portal 47, send me the info, and I'll get you in. And as the months go by and we get back into next con season, I have some live aspects of it too, one of which is the major cons. Wherever I am where there's a portaler in the neighborhood, we'll have a meetup at a con.
Oh, that's excellent. So this is going to be a living, breathing portal that's going to be evolving over time. Yeah,
I picked Portal because I wanted to be a guidepost, a gateway to something we don't exactly know what's going to be on the other side. So, but it'll be far-ranging. So, I thought I went through a lot of different, good old Star Trek things like Vortex and, Gateway sounds a little like it's more mundane than kind of mysterious. So Portal to me was kind of like, we don't exactly know where we're going, but it's going to be a fun trip. So
actually, it sounds pretty awesome. I'm sure you'll get a few emails after the show goes live.
I hope so. Because I'm really excited about it. Because the thing is, and the clock is ticking here, but I mean, like, I still am a spokesman for Enterprise in Space, which is an awesome nonprofit that's about to have some big news in the next 2 or 3 months. And if people aren't familiar with that, I'll just say enterpriseinspace.org. It's a group that's putting together this nonprofit. So in America, you can make a donation and it's tax-free. But basically, it's a global crowd-funded, but not Kickstarter, Indiegogo, just ongoingly 2 million people send $20, and they have their $40 million budget from around the world to put 100 or more student experiments, K through postgraduate from around the world, into orbit on a custom design orbiter that's named Enterprise, to be the first real enterprise in space since the first shuttle didn't. Yeah, and it's already gotten some aside from the student education component and the outreach to teachers and getting kids excited about kids of all ages excited about space again and launches and going into space, and getting into the future, moving into the future. Also, we've had some aerospace companies and an AI company, artificial intelligence company, working on a cognitive computer called eMind. It was already called Enterprise Mind before they heard about us, and they're partnering up with us. And I say us. There was a team of superstar educators and NASA engineers and promoters before they got in touch with me a year ago. And we had a quiet launch, but it's about to pick up steam big time. But the idea is to launch this 8-foot craft. The contest to design it has been decided 5 years from now, or I say 5 years. Now we're into 2019, and that's the time. And over that time, it'll be rolling out the education aspects to teachers and classes and mundane, lay people, and having 2 or 3 waves of competitions for and to be fully funded. Not, hey, you won the contest, now pay all your costs, but actually do it for the winners, and also the engineering. And tons of partners are giving us discounted or even in some cases free services. Like you're still talking about launching and having a craft that's fabricated to orbit and return so that it goes on tour. The people all retrieve their data during the flight and afterwards, about a week long, depending on the budget, it's raised. And then it comes back for a tour. And the big bonus for all the grassroots supporters is we're calling them virtual crew, because everyone that sends in just their, no crazy Kickstarter levels and prizes, but you send in your $20 from wherever you are, you immediately can print out a certificate that shows you're a virtual crew member on the first NSS Enterprise in orbit, because the National Space Society has sponsored this. So it's the NSS Enterprise.
Oh, wow.
But also
sweet.
Your name goes on a chip that flies. So you actually were aboard the first real Enterprise in space.
That's spectacular.
So, and you're doing your bit to get kids excited in the next generation of thinkers and doers. And not just science, but it's STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math will be involved with the project. So that's awesome. And then we have the Geek Tours next year for our Trek 50th. The 5.0 next year is driving everybody crazy already. And Geek Nation Tours, and we're going to do our LA Film Site Tour, and we're adding on a San Francisco component. So basically come to my site. All these things are separate entities and things that I'm working with. But if you come over to my site and my Larry Nemecek Trekland and my Larry Nemecek Twitter, you can find out about that, since I know maybe some of your listeners are new to some of these things. So.
Yeah, I know a few of our listeners have not been to the con yet, and they're seriously considering going for the 50th. So hopefully all of this new stuff is going to entice some of them, and some of them, you know who you are, because I've been talking to you on Facebook recently about coming out. So hopefully all this is fuel for that fire.
It's going to be great, because the con will go to 5 days, but I can already tell the veterans are already excited. But there are so many people I know who are they're fans, but they stay in they go to conventions, but they're in their regions. And there's fans in the UK and Germany and Australia. There are so many people who go, well, damn it, if I'm ever going to get to Vegas, I've got to go for the 50th. And it's just going to be, and there's already been a little paranoia about rooms, because there's the Rio, but then the Gold Coast is across the street, and there's a Holiday Inn Express, and people are like paranoid about and people are even paranoid about creation tickets and the packages and everything. And there's no need to panic, but I mean, people should think about it. And then all the sites that social media has let people get so empowered on their own. I said a while ago, it's about it used to be like the sheep going from room to room on the schedule. People are setting up their own stuff. We do a landing party, preview party at the Masquerade Bar on the night before the con opens, where we have trivia and games and stuff. And I say we, that's Roddenberry of Mission Log Pog and DVD Geeks and Glue Guns and Phasers and StarTrek.com. Or I'm sorry, not StarTrek.com, TrekMovie.com, and then Trekland and my projects. But it's like trivia and prizes and things on the Tuesday night. But we have the one-day tour out to Valley of Fire with Geek Nation Tours on Tuesday. But there's been con creep. That's been the thing also, that people are coming like day 2 or 3 and 4 days earlier.
Yep.
To go to Vegas and do stuff and then hang out, and then they hang on. Now the Monday pool party on the Monday after is a thing now. It's just amazing how just the last 4 or 5 years it's done that. So anyway, so people are even more hugely excited, and there's Facebook threads. There's the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas thread. There's the STLV After Hours Facebook thread. I should, people are posting stuff there. So anybody who's coming for the first time, and people who want to know, navigating the prices and the rooms and what to do and not to do, pop up on those and people will answer your questions. So there's lots of new people coming next year, or maybe the first time in a long time, and plenty of way to people to hold your hand before you ever get there.
Well, and a shameless self plug here for Craig and I on our show. We're planning currently a Con 101 episode with Heather Barker, who's going to come on and give you all kinds of tips and tricks and things for first time con goers who may be thinking about going to the 50th.
Well, Heather is one of the two admins on the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas Facebook thread. So there you go. No,
we just had her on last week, so she's excellent.
Excellent idea, because you could never brace people enough. It's not, and I don't mean that in the same way as like people trying to penetrate and navigate and survive. It's like San Diego Comic-Con with its 150,000 people. It's not at all about like surviving and not being squashed.
No.
But it is like you want to maximize your time, and you have choices to make, and money versus time versus different kinds of money, different kinds of time, and things that you don't know, or do I have to be an insider and know after 3 or 4 years, what's going on? Because for one thing, the thing evolves every year. Just the last 3 or 4 years, it's gotten crazy. So no, good on you, and that'll be. People should all look forward to that, because I know you'll do a bang. Now that was this your first time for both of you last year?
Second.
Oh, okay. Well, see, you're old hands. You're old battle-hardened veterans now. So, yeah.
Well, we've been to the creation cons here in Jersey, which are nowhere near the scale and breadth of Las Vegas. So when we got there for the first time, it was a bit overwhelming that year. And I think this year was quite a bit different for us. It was much more subdued. We knew what to expect. We knew what we were there for. And it was more about the people this year than it was about anything else.
Yeah, and that's what, people, it's almost like you get that. I don't want to say you get that out of your system, because you always enjoy hearing people talk or getting some autographs, and they always try to bring in new people, even like one-timers, of the actors, and especially the behind-the-scenes gang. And one thing, I call it the Comic-Conification. The cosplay has just exploded, or going in costume. It used to just be people would just show up in their uniforms or their Klingon gear, or whatever. And you'd have a few random people. My friend Eve from Atlanta, she was like one of the early pioneers 5, 6, 7 years ago. It was her thing to always try to do guest star cosplay and thing. But Comic-Con San Diego, spreading to the Comic-Con explosion around the country, the last 3, 4, 5 years has really added to the creativity and the imagination and the sense of humor in a lot of the cosplay. And the other thing, good on CBS, for the last 3 or 4 years, when they got the keys back to the site and kind of made sense out of the hash there for a while, they've really been pushing the Comic-Conification of the panels, so that a lot more of the licensees and the creatives who are doing things are having a presence and a face. It used to be there were just like 1 or 2 of us that would do secondary room type shows. And now between the professors and then a lot of the people with like books or working on projects or at official events and things, there's just something going on all the time, and a lot more meat on the bone. So that's just been the last 3 or 4 years. So good on all that. So yeah, it's a lot. It's not about numbers, because it's really only like 8, 10, 12,000 bodies, but it's about knowing what's going on and planning your time and not missing stuff.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Since we've rolled back to the con, I hope that you'll indulge me here, Larry, because we had at 4:00 in the morning when we were having our discussion, there was a topic that had come up and a story that you had started to tell me. And then I said, can you just hold this, because I want to talk about this on the show. So if you would be so kind, we were having I don't remember how we got on the topic, but somehow my fandom of the Gorn came up. And we got to talking about the CG Gorn from the Enterprise episode, and you were starting to tell me a story about a conversation you had with the guys who designed it.
Oh yeah. Well, I was disappointed. As much as I love Dan Curry and all of them that Ron Moore and Ron. I don't know exactly who was hands-on with that, because that was part of In a Mirror Darkly, and they were able to get the Tholian in one and the Gorn in the other. But and try to flesh them out, which was cool. But part of the story was that for Enterprise, a lot of people were disappointed in the Gorn because it became more dinosaurish and less lizardy, less reptilian. And and at the time I asked them about that, and that's in an interview, and here we go. This is stuff that I should get out and air out. And I remember them talking about that. It's like everything else, the dilemma of making anything original series look good in modern technology, whether it was how the production design should go, or how to texture the ship or whatever. And that was one of the things that they, I won't say struggled with, but they had a lot of choices they could go, and the choices they went with was just what they went with, and it had to do with a lot of it was like animating the neck and all that. But I know a lot of people were a little disappointed, and what I go back to is remembering, like in the late '90s when things were just booming along, and the first computer video games were coming out, and Starfleet Command. There was a game where a lot of cadets or young officers. There was like an Andorian and a Tellarite and maybe even a Gorn by then. And Mike Westmore, as they would make the licensees do, they made them use show designers, so that the continuity would be there. And they had to use Mike Westmore to design things to get it off the ground, because they shot some things live and some things before we had CG really. And he was really proud, because they would always get double bang for the buck, and they would design stuff, and then hopefully they thought that maybe they could use it on shows. And he did a Gorn sculpt that was, in his genius way, Mike Westmore, God bless him, nicest guy in show business, he absolutely did the look of the 60s with the best of technology then available, and sculpted this thing. And the dweeby little producer of the game said, no, I want to do this. And he made changes that kind of made it a little more like what they wound up doing on Enterprise. And not that those two were linked, but what I'm saying is we came this close to having, Mike Westmore in the closet had all the sculpts and molds to do a Gorn, so that who knows, even late DS9 or Enterprise for sure could have introduced a Gorn character, and maybe even done it live, not so much CG'd, or had it be a combination. But I that's what I was getting to, was I wasn't happy with the choices they made either, but I know what was done on Enterprise was driven by animating it for what they'd, and of course on their time and budget. They had X amount. It was the middle of the year, and they didn't have a lot of R&D for it. So that maybe we can just say there are different variations in Gorn species or whatever.
That's what I was going with.
Yeah, the old canon catch. Yeah.
So, Craig, do you have anything that you want to touch on?
No, I think we covered a lot.
Oh, so Larry, anything that you want to touch on in closing before we wrap up?
I was trying to be subtle or not so subtle there, and get everything mentioned that I'm working on, because the best thing I think I mentioned coming to Salt Lake next year is going to be crazy with conventions. I've got a calendar at my site. My site's LarryNemecek.com. You can go to the blog there. I have a lot of video interviews. I've got tons of video interviews I haven't put up yet, and hopefully things to come soon. Of course, Star Trek continues. I played McCoy the first 2 episodes and stay on as a creative consultant, and we're about to premiere episode 5 at that Salt Lake Comic-Con at the end of September. And it'll be on almost simultaneously online.
Excellent.
Yeah.
They do a wonderful job.
And this is the first one with location footage. If people,
oh wow,
if people saw the White Iris at cons this summer, they'd been playing the teaser for episode 5, and then cutting it off. But it's the first location shoot that they've gotten off the sets for, and the plans are 6 and 7 are in the works to be shot this coming fall. Have some more location work on 7, or some things that can be shot in LA, I think. Or later on. So 2 more are coming, and that probably means a Kirk starter down the line. And, very continues and the thing that Vic's very proud of is how efficient they're shot and funded. And we have an army of wonderful supporters who enjoy seeing looks like they found a lost episode from 1970, which is the whole point, and 4:3 ratio and all that stuff. That's coming. And then I guess I should. This is the part where I feel the most used car salesman-y. But the Trekland trunk is where I get stuff out of these archives of mine, and so we don't have so much of a storage bill now since we moved. And just a lot of things like early draft scripts and set plans and promotional stuff, and things like that. And I put them up. We do a live and local, I call it, auction at the funkier stuff on Sundays on Facebook. So, and then the rest is just up on eBay under Trekland Trunk. But there's a Facebook page and a Twitter that are both called Trekland Trunk. And if you just go like that, then when I put new stuff up, as I've got to do today, there's 3 or 4 or 5 things a week. And then most Sundays we do 1 and sometimes 2, like little quickie 3-hour rounds. And on the Sunday ones, we have a bunch of regulars. And half the time they role play in there. We have a Breen and an Orion girl and and a Borg drone. And they're all kind of wacky people. But it's not a little club. I mean, come on in. They make everybody feel welcome. And they're just little 3-hour quirky bid rounds for quirkier stuff that I have that I don't think is quite eBay snobby level stuff. So, and most of the stuff on either one, it's very few times things are like, there's some clothing things, but most of the time it's stuff like in the $20, $30, $50, $60, $70 range. So not outlandish. I wish it was more, but not outlandish, expensive stuff. So that's okay. That's my oily, slimy, used car salesman-y thing. I did the Trekland Trunk so I wouldn't be running around the internet going, oh, come buy this. So you get on the list, and then if you're interested, you hear about it, and we're all happy.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we'll have links to all of your websites and things in the show notes for this episode, which will be going live, I think, tomorrow night.
Oh, my God, that's fast. Okay,
yeah,
great.
I'm going to be doing some editing tonight and get it out. But Larry Nemecek, it has been a distinct pleasure to have you on the show. I'm sorry that it took 2 years to get you here. I sincerely hope that it will not take another 2 years to get you back here.
Well, no, wait. 2 years and all these amateur mistakes? What the hell is this? No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. The upside is that you guys have got a great thing going here, and with the supplementals as well as the episodic shows. So, do you ever have guests on the episodic shows?
Well, we had the first ever guest. It was our 80th commentary episode. We did The Cage with the Green Girl creator, George Pappy.
Oh, good. Well, that's good. No, George I enjoyed being in. He snagged me to get to talk a little bit about her I didn't know Susan Oliver, but he had me in that too. So that was George's a great guy, and that's a great. I'm sure you made the point when you did the show. But,
oh yeah, we were at the premiere at the convention 2 years ago. We went and saw it there, and we had George on to do an episode specifically about the Green Girl prior to that. So.
Right.
He's a wonderful, wonderful guy. We were very sorry he didn't make the convention this year.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. Sometimes when you have like one particular thing you do, you make a splash, but then you may not have as big a single impact as, I mean, if he had a whole series or something or whatever, but it was a lot of fun, and he had a Q&A afterwards, and 3 or 4 of us that were in from Trek World who were already there for the convention talked. And what's great about that is, and I've had this, like we have Harv Bennett. Oh, I should mention the Wrath of Khan also, or the Con of Wrath.
Oh, sure, yeah, that's your documentary. We totally skipped over your documentary.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, I feel like I've talked about it for 5 years. Like Rod Rodberry told me one time, just don't take 8 years, like they did with Trek Nation. But we're on the final approach path. I was originally trying to get it out for next year, and we might still do that. Adam, for the Love of Spock, his documentary about his dad is going to take up a lot of attention next year. So I don't want to try to compete with that. So we'll see how that goes. But within the next year and a half, we'll have the Con of Wrath out about the infamous 1982 Meltdown Convention, what I call Trek's most glorious failure, with so many original cast involved. And but talking about documentaries, I was really thrilled. The first 2 people I got on camera were Walter and Harv Bennett, and of course Harv passed away the same week that Leonard did. And my point was going to be that George with the Green Girl has already had 5 or 6 people he got on camera who have passed away since. So it gets back to that communicating and preserving and unearthing and archiving all this. I mean, I guess that's kind of turned into my mission in life. I had a news and a theater background, and I guess a lot of that's about communicating. And in so communicating, we can't help but preserve things that we think are important for people who think like us, or maybe people who don't think like us, but that it's there and out there. And I guess that's kind of turned into what I've wound up doing here. So for everybody who enjoys that, or maybe it takes 10 or 15 years and they go, oh my God, we almost lost this. So, whenever that kind of appreciation hits you, and if some of that laps over into maybe supporting the things that I do and projects, good on you. But that's kind of where I've wound up. Of course, I'm a docent for Will Rogers at the Will Rogers Historic Park Ranch here, and it took Terry Rio, that wrote Dee's biography, DeForest Kelley's biography, to point out how much DeForest Kelley and Will Rogers and McCoy's character were alike. And I went, oh, okay, well, I guess that makes sense why I enjoy them all so much. But yeah. So anyway, so that's things in Trekland, and kind of where I am. So, but thank you guys for having me on and letting us ramble. Hope it wasn't too rambly.
No, it was great. I think we got a lot of information out.
Yeah. So I'm just very excited about Portal 47, and I hope that sounds exciting to people, and let me know. And for right now, it's small potatoes and intimate, and so just email me and I'll send you the information, and eventually we'll have all the web contacts and everything. But I'm just busy getting the pieces together. So and just very excited about that.
Okay.
So thanks again.
Perfect. So we'll have your email address in the show notes for people to email you about Portal 47. So thanks so much for being on the show again. Hopefully we'll get you on in the very near future for another update when Portal 47 launches and gets its some updates going, and we can drum up some more subscribers for you.
I appreciate that, guys. Thanks so much. And yeah, and a second trip won't have so much startup catch up to it. So
all right, take it easy, Larry. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. Bye.